If you see a blended family,
If you don't have anything nice to say, keep your mouth shut.
that's a good one. Also, if you're in doubt or you're just curious, but you don't know how to approach or say anything, then don't say anything. Mind your business.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle.
I'm excited about it.
We finally have gotten to a point where we're just ready to share unfiltered our lives. Infertility is tough. Adoption is tough. But then even talking about like me losing my dad, you losing your mom within a couple of years of each other, our kids losing grandparents, your career and my career, and then making the ultimate decision to move to Nevada and what that looks like, moving away from all of your friends and family and all of those things.
Hopefully people can resonate with our story and just letting people know that they're not alone.
It's not the norm, and infertility is something that people don't ever want to talk about. Our family is such a hot mess, Express. I mean, this is just what it is, right? Like, so we don't have to front anymore.
It's been a long time coming. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle. I'm your host, KC.
So today we are back and we've given you all the story of our adoptions. And today we're just going to talk about some fun things and then also some educational things. More than anything, I think one of the biggest struggles that we had when we first got out there in the real world were how to deal with all of the people and the stares and the questions and all of those things. So today we're going to dive right into it. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So let's give you a background of both of our girls. So our oldest, Kaylin, she's 13. She is mixed. She is half white and half black.
However, when we got her,
Yes.
she thought that she was Hispanic, if you remember.
Yes.
Hispanic and black, because that was her memory, that she was Hispanic and black. And it was actually sad because Savannah is half Hispanic, or I don't know, 3/4 Hispanic.
Everything.
And so that was a little connection that Kaylin felt like she had,
Right.
you remember, with Savannah. But turns out we did, after doing an ancestry, we realized and had to break the news to Kaylin that she, in fact, was not Hispanic and she was black and white.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't her birth mother say that her birth father was Hispanic as well?
Yeah. So she obviously didn't know, she didn't know exactly what she was. And I don't think mom knew. But Kaylin did have a memory of a Hispanic father. And so, I don't know, looking at her, the first thing I thought about,
she could pass for Hispanic.
Yeah, she looks like Dora. I would always say when we first got her with those big cheeks, and like she looked like Dora the Explorer. And so, Dora, we just thought, So she's black and white. And then Savannah's a mutt. So Savannah she is
everything.
Black. So she's black, Mexican, Italian, Native American, Filipino, Puerto Rican, and Hawaiian.
And sassy.
Yeah. So when we first picked her up, though, I think we talked about this before from the hospital. I think the social worker thought that we weren't going to go and get her if she wasn't black. And so she lied or fibbed a little bit and said, oh, yeah, she's black, baby. I'm like, okay. We got to the hospital and it was very obvious that she was not black.
Yes. But obviously we weren't going to say no to a baby.
No, a baby that needed
a home. So
100%. And a newborn baby at that, because that's what, we always wanted. If we couldn't, experience that on our own, we always wanted, to experience. And it was nice to experience everything from the pregnancy. Both of my sisters had a little bit of traumatic pregnancies, and I don't want that. So I'm happy that I was able to, still experience motherhood from having a newborn baby. But yeah.
So what are some of the things that people say to you when you are out with our kids?
So I think that people just really think that I'm their mother and KC is just not their father, honestly. Right? I think
that's the common.
Or maybe they just don't know. I don't know. I've had so many people tell me that Savannah looks like me. So I remember being actually at the doctor's office when Savannah was like 1, and the nurse's assistant was Hispanic. And I remember her saying, to me, like asking all of these questions, about pregnancy. And I was like, oh, I don't know. She's adopted. And she's like, oh my goodness. Like, She was like, I wouldn't have known that. She looks just like you. And I was like, really? She does? I mean, she's like, yeah, she has your features. She has your nose. And I will say that a lot of people say that, right? Kaylin and Savannah are not biologically related, but I think it's just like with your friends, right? Once you hang around your friends, like me and Tamara, for example, everyone says that, everyone thinks we're sisters. And it's just, she's been my friend for so long. I guess we start looking alike. So I think it's the same. But yeah, so we get that a lot. We get a lot of.
You favor in some of your facial
I
features.
think
You
we have the
favor.
same nose. Me and Savannah have the
Yeah.
same nose, and Kaylin. Obviously, it's not your nose, so then they just
Well, no, because my nose is huge.
well, then
Yeah.
they just automatically like, oh, that must be mom. So I think it's probably different for you too. But yeah, I think people just don't know what to think about us.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's funny though is like I feel like white people adopt black children all of the time, and it's like this very obvious like, oh, they're adopted or whatever. And it's just, I don't know, I guess people stare and stuff too, but I feel like the experience for us being black adoptive parents, when that's just not the norm, not to say that there aren't, black families that adopt. Obviously, there's a ton of us, but it's not as, you don't see it as frequently, especially through foster care.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's why I kind of feel like that's why they were like fighting so hard to get us, because
Yeah.
having a black adoptive family was just something that was very rare.
Yeah. They wanted us to
Yeah.
be open to so many more. I don't want to say take, but they wanted us to be open to so many more. And honestly, I would be open to so many more. But however, KC over here is like, we don't have any more room in our house. But I feel like we need twin boys. I'm just saying.
Well, it's just my bank account's not set up for more kids. That's all.
I know, but where there is a will, there is a way. And I feel like if it's meant to be, everything will fall into place.
Well, I agree with that. I do. I do.
Anyway, so yeah, I think for me, when I'm out with the girls, people just assume that like my husband is Hispanic. I think because Kaylin can pass for being black and Hispanic, we actually don't get that many questions at all about Kaylin. I think people just assume Kaylin is ours.
Well, Kaylin's more,
She has more.
her skin is a lot darker than Savannah's skin.
Yeah.
So she's more fair skin, and she's definitely closer to our skin complexion than Savannah is. So I think that's why we probably get less questions about Kaylin than we do Savannah.
Yeah. I think so it's funny. So the girls just recently, they've both been very unhappy with the way that they look. And as a girl mom, I think it's important, especially this day and age, that our girls are very comfortable with the way that they look. So just recently, Kaylin, who has very curly hair naturally, has decided that she hates her curls. And she wanted to get a Brazilian blowout. So I was like, heck to the no. Like, you were too young for that. But she got a keratin, so her hair now, for the most part, is straight. And then Savannah's hair has always been straight, can't hold a curl worth anything. But she wanted curl, so we got her a perm. And so it's hilarious. But now Kaylin's hair still curls. Like today, it's curly because she washed it, right? So I think now more than ever, they look more like they could be biologically related because their hair is curly, right? Both of their hair patterns are the same. It's weird. I think that Savannah wanted curly hair because she, without saying it, she felt like she didn't look like us. And so she wanted to look more like her sister. And so I think that's the reason why she wanted her hair curled, or part of the reason, I would say, for sure.
Maybe.
And so anyway, I remember this story, or not the story, but I remember, do you remember when we had just moved to Las Vegas and we were in Costco and we had the in the basket and we're walking. So, in Costco, they have all of those vendors who were trying to sell all of their things, whether it be like the massage chair or pots and pans or solar or whatever it is, right? So we're walking and we're in a rush. There was like 5 million people in Costco this day. I think it was like a weekend. And do you remember we were walking and this lady who was like selling something stops us, and she had the nerve. She was like, "Oh my gosh, your babies are beautiful, but where do they get their fair skin from?" Do you remember that? I was like, this?
People are just so bold. Like
what?
You have the audacity to say that to someone you don't even know in Cosco.
And they say it in front of the kids. is like, oh, thank you for giving my kids a complex here,
Yeah.
and pointing out the fact that they don't look the same or that they don't look like us.
Right.
And so I remember, I'm sure because I'm someone who wears my expressions all over my face.
Yes, she does.
I probably was like, this bitch, but I think I just said something like, oh, they get it from me. And I think she was like, oh, okay. And then if I remember clearly, I also told her, I think I had you push the basket on, and then I told her something like, that is not something that you say to someone that you don't know. Like, how rude of you to say something like that to someone that you don't know. These are actually my kids, and it's none of your business, but they're adopted and they're little. So how dare you even bring that up? And I remember she was so apologetic, but it's like, don't say dumb shit. And then it won't be, then you won't have to apologize, right? Or just assume, right? Like, I mean, these could be my nieces. This could be anyone. So, and I just feel like this day and age, there's so many blended families. So why in the world would that even cross your mind to say?
Yeah. I mean, at this day and age, I don't think anybody's 100% anything.
I agree.
Like, is that even still a thing? But I mean, I've said before, just because you think something doesn't mean you have to say it out loud.
Right.
And that is a prime example of you can think it, but just don't say it, because you never know someone's situation or what they're going through or what they're dealing with at that time. So for you to say something like that without knowing the backstory, it's just inappropriate.
Yeah. We get a lot of that though. I mean,
What was the one lady who thought you were a nanny or something?
all the time. I mean,
were we in a grocery store or something?
Yeah, I get that.
She's
all
like,
of
"Are
the
you their
time.
nanny?" Or I forget. She actually like if you were their nanny or something.
Yeah, I think that when the kids are with him, they just assume, and then they see me. I don't know actually, but yes, I'm the nanny. This one lady I remember thought that I was from Ethiopia and I was the au pair. And it was hilarious. I was like, oh, I've never had anyone tell me that I look Ethiopian. But I mean, okay, I'll take that. I am African American, but at that same time, like if I look more ethnic than what I am, I'll take that. Shoot.
Well, the story, Savannah, when I went to pick her up from school one day, and I've told you this before, there was a substitute teacher, and all the kids are waiting next to the teacher, and they're waiting for their parents to get there from to come pick them up. So I go up to the gate to get, it's like, oh, pointing at me. Oh, there's my daddy right over there.
Yeah, right.
And the teacher's like, where? And she's like, right there. And I raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, I'm her father. And the teacher was like, you sure? Like, she wasn't sure. She's like, that's my daddy. I'm like, yes, I'm her father. And then the teacher releases her. But it was like the teacher, it didn't click in her mind that because I didn't look like Savannah, that I couldn't possibly be her father because I was a black man.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that where
Black
people
man
are
in America
yeah,
coming to kidnap the child from the school.
questioning if I'm her father just because I don't look like her. But
Yeah.
I mean,
They must think that when you're with Savannah, though, that you have like this like hot Latina sassy wife. Then they see me and they're probably like, what the heck? Who is this?
they might think that, but it goes back to our point of, is it really any of your business?
Yeah, that's true. I also feel like this day and age, you see so many blended families. It's so common. I mean, so many people, it doesn't even have to be adoption. It's just you could have been in a relationship, had kids, and then you guys split. And then next thing you know, you're in another relationship, you're married, and and kids from previous relationships are now part of this family. Like, so it doesn't have to just be adoption. Blended families are so common these days. I'm so happy that finally interracial marriage and all of that is like accepted, because there was a time where it wasn't accepted. But now I feel like you see mixed babies everywhere, right?
It's a lot more common.
Yeah. And so you just never know what people, what their story is, what their background is, what their family dynamic was. And so I just think that, more often than not, people just don't, like what you said before, people just don't know what to say. So then they're uncomfortable. But, any advice that I would give would just be like to just treat, I don't want to say don't see color, because I think it's important to see color, right?
Yeah, and that's just not realistic. Anyone who says they don't see color, it's like you're not being truthful.
Yeah, but just don't make it so obvious that You know what I mean? You're staring at us because we may not look the same, But then at the same time, I also embrace it. I feel like, from me being an adoptive mom, it's a great, I can tell sometimes when people are wondering, and I'm someone who's super open. So I will share. I used to overshare and just tell people because I felt like people were staring at us. And so I'd just be like, oh, my kids are adopted. But like you said, it's no one's business. And I think I had to really get there on my own to realize, like, I don't owe you anything. I don't have to tell you anything about me. And I definitely don't want to tell you in front of my kids because I don't want to give them a complex or, I feel like kids who go through foster care and then adoption already could be faced with so many identity issues. The last thing that we want to do is make them, feel uncomfortable in their skin,
Right. Right.
So,
Do you think, and this is coming off the top of the head, I feel like we get a lot of questions simply because people are just not used to seeing Black families with kids that are not Black.
I agree.
Because if we flip that whole scenario, see a white family, white mom and dad with a Black child, do you think people are questioning to them, oh, where does your kid get their complexion from?
No, I think it's very obvious.
Exactly.
Especially if the kid's not mixed. But yeah,
Exactly.
I think, to your point, you just don't see it. It's not common.
Right.
And I think the other thing with that is when you think about foster care, I hate to say it, but kids of color make up the majority of the kids that are in the system. So even with us, when we started this journey, we had no idea that, our kids now would be the races that they are now, right? Like we had no idea. We thought it was just, there's going to be 5 million kids in the system that are Black and we would easily be placed with Black kids. But I'm so happy.
Yeah. It's funny so the couple that we did all of our, because before you can become a foster parent, you have to go through a lot of classes and parenting classes, CPR classes, and things of that nature. So there was another couple that was also in the class with us. They're a Hispanic couple, and they ended up adopting some children, and they adopted Black kids.
I'm going to give them a shout out. Shout out to the Zamoras. We love y'all.
Yes. So it's funny. The Black couple, we didn't get Black kids. And then the non-Black couple, they got Black kids.
And it's been amazing because she'll call me and she'll be like, girl, I don't know how to do this hair or her hair is like this. How can, and it's the same. Like when I have questions for her, it's so nice to have like those resources, right, of people as well. Like people that we went through this process with. It was just us. That shows you the shortage of foster parents. When we went through our classes, there was only another couple. That's it. Yeah. And we were in California, in San Joaquin County, and there are so many babies in the system, but no one is signing up to be foster parents. It's really sad. But yeah, it's so funny. Like to this day, we joke about that all the time. Like, we got the kids that you probably thought you were going to get, and minus Kaylin, but Savannah for sure. So yeah, it's been nice. So lately, Savannah has been struggling a little bit because we just recently pulled Savannah out to homeschool, and it had nothing to do with questions that she was getting from kids. But once we pulled her out, then we realized that she was really being questioned. And honestly, so we told Savannah recently that she was adopted. We hadn't told her yet, and we just didn't think that she was old enough to even deal with the emotions of that or to even understand what that meant. So,
to be honest, I still don't think she truly understands the concept of adoption and what it's.
No. I mean, I think that there's huge differences where Kaylin remembers that she was with her biological mother. She knows that she was in foster care in lots of different homes, and then she made her way to us. So for her, it's never been a secret. And it's never been a secret for either one of them. It's just what we talk about for sure. I think Kaylin gets less questions because Kaylin is half Black. And like you said, her skin tone is closer to our skin tone. So people just, look at, I think that people, if anything, they would just think that either I'm biological mom or you're biological dad. You know what I mean? And then she has, a white or Hispanic mom or dad that's just not in the picture, or that maybe is in the picture. I don't know. So, but with Savannah, I think it's more obvious, even though she has Black in her, it's very like 0.15% or something like that. Or,
Yeah.
it's very little. But with that being said, Savannah has been. So I used to go into the classroom all of the time when she was in first grade. I was like the room parent, and I would go in and I would help the kids do XYZ. And I remember the first time going in, the teacher was like, "This is Mrs. Carter. This is Savannah's mom." And I just remember the kids looking all confused, like, "How is this?
That's not your mom.
Savannah's mom," right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like she's in first grade, so I wasn't ready to even deal with that. And I think that was the first time that I saw her like visibly struggle with,
Right.
just identity. You know what I mean? Like, well, what do you mean? Why are you questioning that? So anyway, we decided, last summer that we were going to bring it to her and let her know. And so we've always done it in the way of, for Kaylin and Savannah, but I've always been super open and said, if you have any questions at any time, then come and ask me. Obviously when we first got Kaylin and she was a lot younger, it was like your mom was sick, right? And she couldn't care for you. And so, this is why we stepped in and she chose us, which is true. And so it was super easy. With Savannah, that her scenario was just totally different because Savannah hasn't known anyone else. Biological mother, father have not been in her life. Great grandmother has been in her life, but no one else, right? No mother or father figure. So we told her, and I remember she just had this look on her face like she was bored or like she didn't want to talk about it. I think she just didn't really know what to say or...
Yeah, I don't think she understood.
Yeah.
I don't think she's understood because we've had Savannah since she was 11 days old. We picked her up from the NICU and we were all she's ever known. So as far as Savannah's concerned, she came from you.
And she still, to this day, after we've told her that she's adopted, she'll still say, when I was in your stomach, or do you have pictures, Mom, so I can see when I was in your stomach? And so more recently, we've talked about adoption, because we really do want to normalize adoption. It's not foreign. I think before in like the Annie days when the movie Annie came out and it was like, orphanages and like stuff like that. Adoption was foreign, but adoption isn't foreign anymore. This is so common. There are so many people who adopt for a number of different reasons. Had we not experienced infertility, we still planned on adopting. So it's just something that I've always wanted to do. And when I married this amazing young fellow over here, he was, he was like, let's go, let's do it. I think you also being a police officer, seeing, kids being taken from their homes and stuff like that, you realize that there's so many kids in the system.
So many kids.
So
it's far too common than what it should be.
Right. So this was just going to, be the thing. But I think, we're doing the best that we can to really navigate with the kids, make sure that they understand that at the end of the day, they are perfect just the way that they are. I always tell the story that I have family members who, are biological kids to their parents, but don't have the same skin tones to their parents. So, I always use this as an opportunity to tell both of my children that, God made us all very unique and different. And it doesn't matter if you came from me or not, you didn't look identical to your biological mother either, right? So people could always question XYZ. But, I think it's important at this point that, one, we just encourage you all who may be listening like, oh my God, no way do I want to adopt because I don't want to go through this. Well, one, blended families is so normal and so common, and it really just, doesn't matter. I feel like me personally, it's no one's business. There's always going to be stupid people who say stupid things, right? But
yeah, well, on that note, let's go over some friendly tips and reminders for people who are out there. And if you see a blended family, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
If you don't have anything nice to say, keep your mouth shut.
That's a good one. Also, if you're in doubt or you're just curious, but you don't know how to approach or say anything, then don't say anything. Mind your business.
Right.
As simple as that.
And I do think like that there are opportunities like for people who are open to share. However, I think, I just use this in
There's a
life.
time and a place.
There is a time and a place.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, like if you're really curious because you care about someone and you want to know their story, then just keep building that relationship. And then eventually, I'm sure, that will naturally come up. But if you're just trying to be nosy, just mind your business, because I could point out 5 million things about you and you wouldn't want someone to do that, right? Like the other biggest thing too is, I would tell people is just be very aware that these are children, right? These aren't adults, these are children.
Right.
So if you're going to say something, I just would appreciate it if you, one, don't stare at me like something's wrong. Don't stare at my children like something's wrong. And if you're going to say something, don't say it in front of my kids, right? Like pull me to the side.
That's huge. Don't say it in front of the kids.
Absolutely. Because as we know, kids are listening even when they shouldn't be listening. They're listening, right? And so, I've had a lot of conversations, even just recently, having conversations with, Savannah's softball coach and like, stuff like that. And it's been, I think we get a lot of the time people will say, oh, I had no idea. And sometimes I'm like, how did you not know? But I mean, I also get it, right? Like when you have the same features or people naturally find features of your children in you, they're like, okay, well, obviously, you know what I mean? There's some sort of relationship. We're just not sure what. I also feel this day and age, people are raising their nieces and nephews. People are raising their grandkids, cousins, like family members are taking family, right? Yeah. So like, let's normalize that, right. The fact that now these kids have a home, right? Like that should be the most important thing. It shouldn't be, I see it a lot of the time too, when, I have white friends that have adopted Black babies and I see so many people being so judgmental of, oh, their hair isn't done, or how come their braids look like that, or, oh, they're unkept. Like at the end of the day, I feel like, we as parents do the best that we can, right? With the cards that we were dealt. And so instead of, and this goes for anyone, but instead of judging, maybe offer a helping hand. And it's the same with me. Like, okay, if you see that Savannah is not, kept in the way that maybe she should, or anyone, like at the end of the day, it's all about how you approach it. Don't come at me crazy and say, oh, your kid's hair is not done. Well, my kid's hair is always done. However, you know what I mean? But I just think, it's just important that, we lead with grace and less judgment. Yeah, grace and less judgment. And just be open to the fact that everyone has a different journey. Everyone has a different struggle. No one's journey looks the same. And so, you might be listening to this also and you're like, okay, well, I didn't adopt and, maybe I'm just not with my baby daddy, or maybe I'm just not with my baby mama. And so now we're, my daughter has two families, and we look different on both sides, right? Like that's normal, right? Like we should, at the end of the day, we should just want our kids to have loving families. And so let's normalize that.
Absolutely.
Let's normalize that.
So I feel like we've beat up this issue.
I just covered a lot, talking about all the things.
Yeah, all of it was necessary.
So I think at the end of the day, we don't want to deter anyone from fostering or adopting or doing whatever you need to do to start your family. I think our experiences are our experiences. And at the end of the day, I just think, that this was a conversation that was necessary, that needed to be had. So yeah, where do we go from here? So if you are watching, listening, you have any questions at all, you're like, oh my goodness, I never thought about this. Like, can I, a lot of questions that people ask all of the time is, can I say I want a Black baby, a white baby, a Hispanic baby? Yes, you can do those things. But if you have any questions at all and you're like, I really, have been interested in foster to adopt, we really would love to like guide you and be a part of your journey and help you out in any way that you can. So this, as well as all of our episodes, the transcripts will be uploaded onto our website, onto our blog. So please go check that out. Our website is thisbeautifulstruggle.com. And you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook, This Beautiful Struggle Podcast. And so Yeah, you can reach out to us. You can connect with us there. We'd be happy to sit down with you either virtually or meet you for a cup of coffee if you're local to us in Las Vegas. And, just really be there as a support to get you through the system. But thank you for listening. And we look forward to you joining us next time.